1965 was the year that was to mark a change in the African and the whole black community when President Lincoln signed on that day that a chains be taken away, that we might enjoy freedom today. But what we do not realize, that what was signed on that day was not for emancipation, but for a change of location, that the chains be taken away from our hands to our minds, so that we can walk freely but think sickly, and this time not in physical bondage, but with a mental blockage and never to be free. See, freedom isn't free, it's pretty expensive. It's not gotten by the mere signing of a paper or the release of a captive. It's amazing that after 246 years of physical slavery, it's now been over 150 years of mental slavery, where we blacks don't feel smart enough, wise enough, can't do enough, and therefore not good enough, feeling as though we are an ill-privileged race. Try asking an African child his lifelong goals, dream, and ambition. Close to the top of that list will be to travel abroad, overseas, out of Africa. But I've never heard of a white kid whose goal, dream, and ambition is to come to Africa. These were the kinds of mindsets we grew up with, where the one who had the privilege to travel was seen as a messiah to come back and save us as people. People, Africans and black as a whole, still live as inferiors. Therefore, recognizing the white man as superiors, thinking the white man is better than us, do anything to please them and waiting for them to approve of us. Heard of an electrician who came from overseas to Africa and was able to gather a group of pastors for a meeting. Not looking down on what anyone does for a living, but I assure you that an electrician in Africa cannot gather a group of peasant farmers, not to talk of pastors, because in Africa we feel they don't factor in our society. Now, this is not an attack on the whites, on any other community, or do I have any intention on distorting the unity, but this is more of an eye-opener, better still a mind revealer, and to tell the young kids that what our fathers called emancipation was merely a change of location, and that we are not totally free.
My name is Dave, and I just found out that I'm not a slave.
If black is so beautiful, then why are they black-toned white girls? If Michael Jackson was proud to be black and beautiful, then why did he die a white man? I say this bluntly, that these are questions we will need to ask to break out of slavery. Why should we think like slaves, or even as less privileged? Why can't we just let go of the past and live in this age? We see 25-year-old African males going to places like Scotland, England, Ireland, and even Iceland to get married to 65-year-old ladies. See, now that is the peak of slavery, and maybe we need to restructure our thinking, revisit our priorities, reassess our aims. But one thing I'm sure sick of is the segregation we receive, so that they will say Oprah is the richest black woman in the world, or Dangote is the richest black man in the world. See, this is an attention and distinction we appreciate, but certainly do not need or even want to relate to it.
My name is Grace, and I refuse to be a slave.
A black man in the eyes of many is seen as a criminal, drug dealer, cold killer, one who will abandon his wife and kids if he has not done that already. Passing the verdict, assuming every black male is an ex-convict, they being backed up with the stats that say 98% of inmates in America is of the black community. So the black man wanna be white to get through airport security, cause he says being white will give him more immunity, and him not being searched like a thief so that he can be respected in the society. Now allow me to unveil to you the biggest plague in our community that has affected our music, movies, fashion, TV, and our entire society. Remember I said what we called emancipation was just a change of location, and how our physical bondage has become a mental blockage. So a black man will say to himself, since I'm not good on my inside, I'll rather focus on the outside, meaning since I'm not smart mentally, then I'll rather build physically and also gain materially. Then a black woman competing for a job will say to herself, since I cannot compete with the white ladies mentally, I'll rather compete physically, so she wears the tightest outfits just not to feel inferior, and that she has something to offer, but I'm not sure if that's what they're looking for. You also see a guy who goes to a lady, asking for her to marry him. She in turn looking around, checking for the kind of car he's driving, asking what his bank statement is saying, why she keeps on emphasizing that it takes a lot to marry me, not giving much thought to his views, values, and potential. A black guy meets a lady for the first time, and he wants to find out how good she looks, rather than how well she thinks. He finds more joy investing in cars than developing his mind, and when you hear him sing, what he talks about is all he has acquired. So we see this trend in our society where the average black male feels more relevant when he builds physically and gathers materially, while the average black females feel more relevant when she builds physically and gains materially. We do this not because we feel this is the most important part of life. We do this unknowingly because there is a mental blockage, and so we feel this is the only way we can compete to stay relevant. My name is Richie Rich, and I am not a slave.